for the Department of Justice, the California Department of Justice, and they're going to be talking about the California project approval lifecycle, maybe some other opportunities within the state of California. So I hand it off to you guys.
Great, thank you. Let me see if I can share my screen. Let me know when you can see that.
Yep, I
See
can
it, Brian.
Yep.
Yes.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Again, Mina and I are excited to share with you some of the information that we've gained and the knowledge we've learned by working for the state for many years. And I know as business analysts, some of you have worked for the state, some of you are working for the state, some of you will work for the state. If you live in Sacramento long enough, you'll be involved with people that work for the state all the time. So anyway, we're excited to share that with you. One of the things I wanted to point out is at the bottom of your screen, if you go to the bottom, it should give you the ability, or for some of you, it could be at the top as well. Mine just changed. There is a reaction button at the bottom, and there's either a clapping or a wave. What I want you to do, or a thumbs up, thank you. Everyone that's found that, do your thumbs up, just like David and Ken have. All right, we're doing pretty well here. Good job. All right, we're looking for lots of thumbs up during this press. No, we're not, but we want you to be able to raise your hand, clap, whatever, if you need anything. Now, also, if you look down, oh, thank you, Ken, for showing how to raise your hand. Excellent. So also down there, there's a chat feature. And so Steve and I will be monitoring the chat as well. So if there's someone that has a question or something, not to interrupt, please feel free to chat. Most of the questions will be better done either through chat or asking us at the end. So if you don't mind doing that, we would appreciate it. So let's go ahead and let me let you know that I've been working for Mina for about 2.5 years now at Department of Justice. I'm there on contract working on a project for tobacco control and enforcement. And Mina is the manager of the project management office. And so she's responsible for all the project managers and several of the business analysts in Department of Justice. So she's very involved in a lot of projects and has worked at Department of Technology, and so understands basically how the project approval lifecycle was created. So anyway, we wanted to share that with you and see if that's something that you can relate to or learn from and use in your organizations as well. So if I can, let's see if I can, there we go. So going back to the beginning of time, most of us that are familiar with projects, especially IT projects, know about the waterfall model. And the wonderful part about waterfalls, we start at the beginning with requirements gathering, which is where the business analysts come in. Then we throw this over the wall, we do design, they throw it over the wall, they do development, we throw it over the wall again to testing, we throw it over the wall to deployment, and then we throw it over the wall to the people that do M&O. And that's the traditional way we've done a lot of the projects. That became what we called the systems development lifecycle. And I think we're very familiar with that one. When PMBOK, or from PMI, came in and was established about 25 years ago, they broke that down into process groups. And this is changing again soon, but this is a good way of looking at it. They talked about project initiation and what it takes to get a project started and off the ground. And then the planning phase, where we actually plan and do our design and prepare for the work that needs to be done. And then the execution phase, where we actually build it, create it, and implement it. And during that process, we have the monitoring and controlling going on, which is often done by a project manager, and in some cases by a business analyst / project manager. And then there's the closure, where we wrap it all up and take care of all, close out all the contracts and everything else. So let me as I continue on, so software development lifecycle. So if you put those two together, the process groups and the waterfall model, you can see that the initiation typically happens before the requirements. And then the planning includes the requirements and the design and execution. We get into the development and testing. Monitor and control runs throughout that. And then as we deploy, we go into a closure mode and then M&O. So you can kind of see how those two relate with each other. Well, there's an alternative now, and we're not going to spend a lot of time over that one, but it's the agile methodology where you take that waterfall method and you iterate in smaller increments. And you plan a little bit, you design a little bit, you build a little bit, you test a little bit, you review it, and then you launch that segment of the product. And then you go through that in a series of sprints until it's satisfactory or done. And so there's these different ways that we see projects. So within the state of California, they looked at that and said, all right, we first have the concept, and they added the concept here, which is the first part, the gray section here, where someone comes up with an idea. In the state of California, that's normally the legislature, or if you're lucky, it can be someone within the organization that has a great idea that rises to the top and is sufficiently valuable to get selected. And then we go into the traditional PMI initiating, planning, executing, and closing phases with the monitoring and controlling. So at the bottom, you can see in green the systems development life cycle that runs from the planning through the closing phases of that. What the state of California has done is they've come up with an approval process. In state government, it's very important that you have approvals before you begin a project. And prior to this process, they had the FSR process, or the feasibility study process. Other states have something, other justification processes. In fact, I think it's Arizona that calls theirs the PIDGE process, which is process, initiation, and justification, or something like that. So everyone has some way of justifying to make sure that we're not spending taxpayer money inappropriately. So anyway, the project approval lifecycle is defined here, and really it's to kick off a project and to make sure it's adequately prepared for and approved before we get into the execution phases. So that's where it overlays in this whole project management lifecycle. So now I'm going to go ahead and let Mina talk in more detail about what that project lifecycle looks like and what the business analyst role is in that project approval lifecycle.
Thank you, Brian. So I thank everyone for being here. So I'm very excited to be here as well. So what happened with the project approval lifecycle and why it actually became or came to be is because we used to have the feasibility study reports. I think people might know it as the FSR, and that process took years, right? And projects were failing and stopping or halting. So what happened is about 5 years ago, a group of people got together and decided they wanted to create something different. And that is how the project approval lifecycle came to be. And what it is there's stages or stage gates. So you have stage gate 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so as you go through each stage gate, you have oversight from either the Department of Technology or your own internal oversight team within each department or agency. And so what they do is say, okay, you have supplied enough information, so yes, go ahead and go to stage 2, right? Or they say, sorry, no, we need, XYZ, whatever, to fulfill the project requirements, if you will, and fulfill each of the stage gates. So why do we use it? We use it because it's structured. It is a actual responsible way, I think, of doing projects in the state of California, because of the fact that we do have projects that failed, and we do have projects that are, very costly. And so this is, again, just about 5 years old, if you will. And so it was set together, and the authority belongs to the Department of Technology. As you see here, it's defined and overseen by CDT. And what that means is that anytime a department or agency who is required to complete the stage gate process or the PAL process has to go through the Department of Technology. And then what happens is the Department of Technology looks at the stage one business analysis, which is your first document, and they determine whether they're going to delegate it back, which means that they give the overall project authority back to the department, so the department handles it internally, or it's non-delegated, and that would mean that the project is going to be overseen by CDT, and they assign some analysts and some associates to help you through the process. There's also, you'll hear the maintenance and operations. They have actually taken interest in those as well. And so what happens is the departments or agencies submit documentation to CDT, and then again, CDT says, yes, we'll delegate it back to you, department, go ahead and work on your project. Go ahead, Brian, please. So as I said, there's 4 stages. So in the stage 1, the business analysis, this is where the business actually says to, they have to write, it's a long document, and what they do is they have to say why they need this project, and right now it's actually a proposal. So why do they need the proposal? What is it intended to do? What will it solve? Why is it needed now? And who are the people that will be impacted? So who are the stakeholders within the department, agency, or outside? So you've got the public, the general public, you've got other agencies, other departments, you have I believe other uh, external entities being impacted. So that's what you document here. And so this document then goes through this routing process within the department, and through its critical partners, then it goes to the Department of Technology. The Department of Technology takes about 30 days and reviews the document, goes through everything, asks their question, does an analysis. They have a sort of like a checklist or a grade check that they do, and then they send back any kind of questions or anything that they find that the department has to define. So then they send a letter to the department and say, your stage 1 business analysis has been approved. However, we will do the oversight. So that means, it's going to be non-delegated. Or if they say to the department, well, it looks like it's something that you can manage, you've got the resources, and it looks like it's something that may not require a lot of heavy lifting, therefore, department, we're going to delegate it back to you. Now, in stage 2, which is the next process in the stage, and what happens is when the department or the departments, and with Department of Justice, it's kind of interesting because something that I need to cover is how do they determine how a project is taken on, right? So with the Department of Justice, a lot of our projects are legislatively mandated. So you have no real say in the department, and as the project management office, we are often stepping in to help these other areas within the Department of Justice write the stage 1 business analysis and then submit it to the to CDT. So then, and then who decides, number 1, and then how is it prioritized, again, if it's legislatively mandated. But there are 3 criteria that the Department of Technology looks at, and we do as well, is 1, legislatively mandated, and does it meet the delegated threshold, or rather exceed the delegated threshold, right? And then is it an IT project? And so those are some of the factors that determine, okay, we're going to have to do the PAL. So stage 2 is where we determine our alternatives. We make our recommendations. We put together a financial analysis worksheet. We put together our staffing plan. This is where we do the market research to determine what kind of solution we want. Is it going to be a software as a service? Is it going to be a COT solution, a commercial off the shelf? Is it something that maybe we can do internally within the department? And so each state agency or department goes through this process of determining this, right? So then that in turn moves it. So again, we have to go through the process of going through the oversight to approve that stage gate, right? So now we're looking at, is it go or no go? So then we get the approval. And then we move into stage 3, which is the solution development. And this is where we ask the procurement team to come in and, well, they're supposed to help us in stage 2. That's the heaviest stage, in my opinion, is stage 2. They come in and they start engaging with us early. And then we're in solution development, which is stage 3. This is where we're looking at the detailed requirements. We're looking at a possible solution. We're refining the requirements. We're talking to the business. And we're now looking at putting together a contract to actually go to bid for the solution, right? The vendor. And so that goes into stage 4. So stage 4 is when we've put it out to bid. In stage 4, we do our evaluations. We go through the whole process of making certain that we've met all the requirements, all of our solution requirements are met. Rather, they've been documented and presented to the vendor. So then the vendor, when we select it, the contract gets executed and the vendor comes on board, and then they start validating the requirements with the business, with the project team, every stakeholder that is impacted by whatever the initiative is, whatever that proposal is. And also at stage 4, CDT or any internal oversight team says, okay, now it's officially a project. Now we can go into the execution stage. Go ahead, Brian. So this is kind of a closer look at the PAL. And as I said, it's stage 1, the business analysis, and whether the organization, so the document asks a ton of questions. Is the department ready? Will a budget action be needed? Will we have to do a budget change proposal to go to the legislature and ask for funding, right? Or positions? And, is it aligned with the department's strategic goals? And then, of course, organizational readiness. And then we go into stage 2, where I talked about the market research, the mid-level solution requirements. Then we determine which, solution we would like to choose. We recommend it, and then we get the approval to go or no go. And then we do the actual procurement. And then stage 4, we go into the project. So how does this look in practice? So we have the business team, the IT team, the project team, and the support team. So it's a big team. It's a big effort. If you can think about, for instance, with the Department of Justice, we have the firearms initiative, and I'm sure everyone is familiar with some of the legislation that has been rolled out in response to all of the violence that's occurred within, the state and or within the nation and even the world. So these are some of the things that DOJ has to look at. And so this is the team that actually puts together the project, and each person comes into play in one or more of those stages. So this is the project team. So you look at the project sponsor, they're going to initiate it. And in the early stages, when you're building your stage 1 business analysis document, you have to identify the project sponsor, the project owner, the IT, all of your stakeholders, everyone that's going to be impacted. So in stage 1, as I stated, the business analysis piece, again, we, as the project management office, when a legislation has hit or when a business has decided they want to engage us, they go through a process of speaking to us about, okay, I have a project, I need to look at it. And so now what we are trying to do is put some internal processes in with DOJ as to saying, okay, let's do an analysis. Let's see what benefits we would have. And so that's an ongoing process. And I'm trying to enlist that a group of people to help me get that into place. But for now, because we are always, having projects that are legislatively mandated, we don't have a choice. So it's kind of assigned to us in that respect. So we have our critical partners. When the stage gates are done, we have to send a transmittal document with our documents, our stage 1 business analysis, for instance, to CDT. And all of these critical partners have to sign off on it. They actually have to help you build the business analysis, or at least look at it and give their, blessings or give us some feedback on what we believe, the department can achieve or not achieve. And so that is what happens in stage 1. Now in stage 2, looking at the project team, again, we've got the same players. And if you'll see, we've got the project manager, but we've got the business analyst right there. And this person, whomever it is a key player in this whole communication scale, if you will, because they are the ones that are helping us translate what the technical team is asking and then what the business needs and documenting. So we go through and document processes, what is currently being done and what we would like it to look like, as an automated or whatever solution we decide we want to. And then we also have the buyer, which we call it the buyer, but it's the procurement people that help us do the market research. They help us do some of the analysis in, okay, what solution is best for us. And the project steering committee is comprised of our project sponsor, our project owner, and then the IT owner. And we actually depend on these folks when the project team themselves cannot make a decision or, we can't solve something. So we escalate it to this group, to the project steering committee. Now, stage 3 is the solution development. As I said, the procurement team is helping us. They put together the procurement documents. So they sort of take center stage, right? And so they are supposed to lead the effort. As we have put together our solution level requirements, they are supposed to help us figure out, how to put the contract together, a statement of work, the request for offer or request for proposal, whatever methodology they decide works best for us, they will help us decide that. And that's usually what happens in the Department of Justice. Each department, it operates differently, so it may be a different effort, but for the most part, this is how it is done here within DOJ. And then we have stage 4, where it's project readiness. As I said before, we, at this point, have awarded, we've selected our vendor, we've awarded the project to them. It becomes a project. Actually, it's actually gone through the planning stages. So now we're moving into execution. And in execution, the procurement team has gone, right? Now we have our implementation, our vendor, our development team, or our solution vendor, and then we also have a contract manager that will manage those vendor contracts. And then we go into closing a project. And at closure, we do we capture lessons learned. This is something I'm stressing for our team to do. And it's something that, we would like to continue to do, but sometimes it becomes difficult. But for the most part, it is something we are trying to do. Then we close out the project and we have to report. It's called the peer report. It's the project implementation evaluation report that goes to the Department of Technology. It is actually routed within our own department, and basically it captures every history, every piece of what has happened in the project, from the financial pieces to the requirements, to the players, to the funding, where the funding came from, and the approvals. So that's what happens, and that's where the oversight person comes in. So Brian will take on this piece. Thank you.
Thanks, Mina. Appreciate you explaining all that. It gets kind of complicated with all the people involved in that one. But let's focus for a moment on the business analyst role. So what does a business analyst do during that process? First of all, they create the concept. They work with the business to understand what it is they really want, and then they roll that into the S1BA in a convincing manner in order to get justification and in order to get approval for this project to move on. As Mina said, it goes through a series of go, no-go decisions, or what they call stage gates. And so it's important that the business analysts understand what the customer wants, why they want it, and then, like I said, present that persuasively so this one stands up against other projects. In phase 2, then they begin to document the requirements. And we have 3 different levels of requirements in the state. The first one is high-level requirements, and those are documented during stage 1, mid-level requirements in stage 2, and then solution level in stage 3. So the business analyst is responsible for helping to define what those are and continuing to get them more and more granular. The solution level requirements, typically if this is going out to purchase, they need to be good enough for a vendor to be able to evaluate and estimate the costs. If it's not going out to purchase, then it needs to be good enough for the IT team to be able to estimate how long it's going to take and what their staffing needs to look like to be able to deliver this. The business analyst is also involved in market research. This is overseen by the procurement folks. They kind of give us the guidelines because there's certain things you can and can't do during market research, certain questions you may not be able to ask. But in most cases, this is an open door to find out what's out there, what the alternatives are, how much they cost, what kind of features they have. You can do demos without any problem at this point. So market research is kind of this open-ended time to learn about the possibilities. And that leads to the next point. The business analyst then helps to identify the alternatives. And we try and pick at least 3 good alternatives that we can choose from. And then we estimate the cost for each one of those and take a look and see not only the cost of developing this, but the cost of maintaining it over a period of time. And then once we have that information in place, the business analyst, the project manager, and the team evaluate the alternatives and recommend the solution. And finally, once that solution has been approved by the business, then we go into stage 3, which is where procurement asks us to help them write the solution level requirements for the statement of work, which is going out to all the vendors out there so that they can bid on this one. If you're lucky as a business analyst, you also get to be involved in the solution team that gets to evaluate all of the different bids that come in and score them to pick the best one, the most cost-effective and helpful one, what we call best value for the state. And then once we have a vendor in place and this has been approved, then maintaining the requirements traceability matrix so we can track and make sure all those requirements that we put together in the preliminary phases are all addressed in the actual execution and development of this product. And then supporting the testing internally and facilitating with the customer the user acceptance testing. So as you can see, there's a lot expected of a business analyst in the state. You know, I know there's a lot in a lot of different organizations, but it's good for you to see that this goes end to end within the state of California. So the next one, let's talk a little bit about some of the skills and attributes that we are looking for with business analysts. First of all, we need people that can plan. As you heard, there's a whole lot of different parts of this one. There's stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, there's SOWs, there's all kinds of things. And being able to understand what needs to be done in what sequence is important. There's a lot of documentation in the state of California, but you have to pull it all together and be able to plan how long that's going to take. Most projects in the state of California take at least a couple of years and could take 5 years for some of the larger ones. Also, the skill, which is very common in business analysts, is interviewing to gather requirements. A lot of facilitation to get people to talk in groups and gather information, especially where you're dealing with stakeholders that may be in different agencies or even constituents that are citizens in some particular area. Documenting that is a very common one as well. Presenting, as we talked about, as a business analyst in the state of California, you're often looking at alternatives and recommending the best possible one, and then helping to review the solution vendors and help to recommend that one of those be selected. So persuasive presenting comes in handy very well also. And then logic, just being able to explain how things work to a technical staff to be able to translate. And you'll see some of these talked about in attributes as well. And the difference between attributes and skills that I see They can both be developed to some degree, but skills are something that you can like take a class in and you can develop that skill. Attributes are a little bit more innate and associated with your personality. And some of the things that the state looks for is they look for leadership in this role. This is not someone who just gets told what to do by the project manager. Often the business analyst is leading this effort while the project manager is taking care of a lot of the high level approvals and all of those kinds of things. But this person is, the business analyst is working with the customer and make sure they get what they need. So it's important that the business analyst be self-motivated. We like people that like to learn because in most cases, we don't understand the entire business process, and we need someone that's going to ask questions, not just to go through the motions, but to actually figure out what it is that's needed here and come up with a solution that's better than anyone else has thought of and facilitate that among other people. So being a learner is a great skill. And then being a good communicator and a translator, being able to go from the business side to the technical side is really important. Communicating in verbal and also in writing, and then being an empathetic listener, someone who again can appreciate what the customer wants, what they need, and then as I say in number 7, they're an advocate for them. Because often when you start off, you get all this great information about what they want, but then later on, there's all these compromises, especially as you go out to bid and you find out that people don't have everything that they want or need. And so you have to decide about whether you can pay a little bit more and get something more or custom develop it or not. And the business analyst is in the best role to be able to help interpret that and see where the value is in the solution. And then also being able to solve problems, being able to come up and look at alternatives and say, which one is the very best one? We need people that are judgmental in a way. That's not normally a positive statement, but we need people that can judge between good, better, and best. And so as a business analyst, we expect you to have the ability to make judgment calls about the value of different items that can be included in requirements or not. So again, business analyst is not a simple job in the state of California. It's an opportunity to grow. These are not things that everyone's expected to do necessarily on day one, but we like people to grow into these roles and become a leader of the project. So with that said, let me go ahead and turn this back to Mina, and she can talk about opportunities within the state of California.
Thank you, Brian. So business analysis is somewhat new to the state, but I believe that it was never a title, if you will. People have been doing that role or playing some part of it in state service, but it was there was never a formal title to it. They're becoming more warm to it because of the PAL process and because they realize that there's such a need for business analysis and for someone to be able to work with the business and the technical and the project teams actually to be able to translate, like Brian said, and communicate the requirements. What is it that the business needs? What is it that they can live with? What is their process? What do they presently do? And what solution would solve their needs or meet their needs? So as I said, the PAL process has actually made it become more of a need and a demand really for business analysis in state service. And we've got pockets of areas within Department of Justice that we use business analysts all the time. So I decided to show you kind of the salary ranges so that you can see. Now, what you're looking at here is the Associate Governmental Program Analyst, which is one series or one classification within the Department of, the state of California. Now, on the IT side, the entry level position is actually the information technology technician, I believe, and I'm sorry I didn't capture that cost here or the salary range, but as an associate, you'll see it's not a bad field to get into. And then it actually increases when you get into an IT specialist 1 position. But for the most part, if you go into the CalHR, the California, the State of California Human Resources Agency. So Brian, if you don't mind going to the next slide over, and we'll talk about that a little bit. You'll see on their site that if you push, I'm sorry, if you put in rather business analysis or systems analysis, or anything that's related to analyst or analysis, you'll see a whole lot of jobs open up. A lot of these classifications will pop up, and you get to see what they're looking for in the business analysis role. And so this is a very high level look at how to get a job within the state as a business analyst, or just within the state as anything that you're looking for, anything that you might qualify for. So one of the things I ask is that you go in and create an actual account with a user ID and a password. That way you've bypassed everything. You just go in and you can create and customize your site, right? And so then the next step is to take the exam. And how you do that is you actually go in and you say, I want to apply for a job, but you have to take the exam first. When you take the exam, I ask that you be prepared. Have your application with you, have your references with you, have information with you so that you're not running around looking for it. And then when you're actually putting in where you've done and duties, and I say to people, don't be wordy, just do 1 or 2 words and limit your characters to 1,000, because that's all you're going to be allowed. And once you've completed the exam, what will happen is it'll immediately give you the results, right? You'll see it. And in order for you to start applying, you could start applying anyway, because you'll be on the list. But what I always say is, if you're reachable within the ranks of 1, 2, or 3, you can immediately start scanning and looking for jobs and applying and sending in your application. So that's the other piece of it, and I didn't put that in here, but you actually go in and create your own application and it's kind of cumbersome, but you'll get a feel for it. They've really improved the site. And then just apply for open jobs, and we've provided the link there if you want to. And I think we're going to share the presentation if Steve and Bobby want to do that. And so the link is there to CalHR. And there are videos on the site. There's a phone number you can contact. You can email them. They've gotten really good about responding and really good about helping people. So I hate to say that, but that's exactly how it is right now. With a new system they've put together, it's a lot better, and it's so much user friendly, or better than it used to be when somebody like me applied 50,000 years ago. So that is the end of our slide, right, Brian?
It is. So let me ask the first question, and we'll go on to others. But so with everything going on with COVID and all the stuff we're hearing about the state budget and possible furloughs, is the state still hiring?
So yes, they are. And what happens is each department is allocated a certain amount of funds to be able to hire. And they're looking for those positions that they haven't filled. So they're trying to fill their vacancies. And the Department of Finance and the legislature actually, sorry, it is the legislature, but it's the Department of Finance that says, okay, department, you can go ahead and hire. So the departments are hiring, yes. It's just a matter of going and looking on CalHR's website and looking for those positions, like I said, those classifications, anything that you can type in keywords and you'll see a lot of the classifications. I know that in that CalHR's website, if you look, there is a place for all the different classifications that are available within the state of California, or within the within CalHR.
Awesome. That's great. What other questions do you guys have about the PAL process and the state of California, business analysis, etc.? We'll let you all find your unmute button for a moment. Or if
And
you
we
want
can
to
use the
send a chat as
chat.
well.
Mhm.
So I'll ask you another question while we wait. I'm good at questions here. The exam, and again, I'm a contractor with the state, whereas Mina is a long-term employee who's been with the state for over 25 years. But I have applied for state positions before, and the exam does not seem to be what I would call an exam. It's not like taking the business analysis exam or the PMI, PMP exam or a school exam. Can you describe what an IT exam looks like in the state of California?
So what it looks like is they ask a certain number of, they'll make statements. So for instance, if you're looking for something in project management, say you take the exam for a classification. So as I stated, those series, so the IT specialist one and or the IT associate, if you look at those exams, there are certain questions that are related to IT. So they'll ask, if you've done any help desk work, or they'll say, talk about presentations. They'll talk about um, different programs you've used. And so it's a slew, it's actually a whole bunch of different domains that are involved in the IT field. So you're looking at service desk, you're looking at um, systems analysis, I believe. There's the business analysis domain, and then of course the project management domain. There's about 6 domains. And then the exam, and so you have to look at it like all they're asking for is just some high level information, and that's why I was saying it's 1,000 characters that gets you on their list, right? It gets you on the list, on CalHR's list, and then you can start applying for the jobs. The real exam, if you will, comes into play when you get selected, when they're asked for you to come in to interview. And that's where I believe the exam really starts happening, because it's pretty involved. And when you're applying for positions, there's also those statements of qualification that you have to put together. And that just says, it depends. Some of the agencies will ask specific questions, and then you have to use examples from your experience, from your life, from your training, all of your education, all of that applies. So the that's when, and then once you do the application and send in your package and you get selected for the interview, then you have to go through the interview process, which again comes with a roughly 8 questions, sometimes more than that, but it's very involved. So it is a process, but the exam really is all about getting your name on the list.
Right. And doing that through your experience, not like it's not asking you a question about, pick A, B, C, or D about, the right way to facilitate an activity. It's how many years of experience do you have facilitating or something like that, correct?
Right. And it asks not in multiple choice, not in the IT series, not that classification. That classification asks you, like I said, in 1,000 characters, you have to put what you did for whatever statement that they ask. So whatever they say, if they say, um, describe or talk about, a time, or not even like that, but it's more technical, more of a dry question, if you will. There's no real, um, it doesn't lead you anywhere. You just have to provide the information. So you have to say, yes, I've done desk help, help desk work, or I've actually worked on projects, and so it's, I think, a system that picks up buzzwords, if you will, and then grades you on how well you have completed that exam. And then it ranks you, and like I said, ranks 1, 2, and 3 are the higher ranks. So if you're there, great, go ahead and apply. But I still ask that you apply, because what they'll do is, if you're really somebody there, you apply and they're really interested in you, they'll go through the list and get you. They'll pick you up if they, feel you are worth picking up or really meet their qualifications that they've asked for.
Very good. We have some questions that have come in on chat. So Larry asked, where are these jobs located? Are there options to work remotely even when all shelter-in-place restrictions will be eventually lifted?
So Larry, actually, I think it's by department. With the Department of Justice, they didn't do remote. In fact, when I first came to the Department of Justice, that was not something they even wanted to explore. And I'm a believer in telework. I'm a believer in both, right? So you have the ability to really impact a person's life and make it. And so with my project managers, I would like that they have at least one day where they're working from home, because there's so much involved when you're putting your plans together, when you're, putting your schedule together, when you're actually completing all the project approval lifecycle documents. So it is by department, by agency, and a lot of what has happened now with this stay in place and shelter in place rather, and the telework has kind of opened up the door to say, well, we've done it, in the past. What about going forward? So it is something worth exploring, and I know that a lot of the departments will find it hard to defend, if you will, to make people go back 100%. So I know our department will be exploring ways to satisfy where we bring in folks and we alternate between, who comes in 1 week and then who doesn't the next week, or 3 days out of the week you work from home, rather in the office, and then maybe 2 days. But it's something that for every department to consider.
Yeah, and I've seen at Department of Justice, since we've been working home, I've seen 3 people that I work relatively closely with start jobs, come in for a couple of days, and then be working remotely 100% during this shelter in place. I mean, people are being hired, people are working remotely, the opportunities are out there right now. Let me answer another question that came up. Someone asked, can you develop the difference between stage 1 requirements, stage 2 mid-level requirements, and stage 3 solution requirements or detailed requirements? Let me address that one. So stage 1 is a high-level view, and it's normally expressed as objectives. So goals and objectives. And we have SMART objectives, and most of you are familiar with specific, measurable, achievable, I can't remember the R, and time bound. But again, SMART objectives, and we come up with a handful of those, anywhere from 4 to maybe 12 of them. And those objectives are the high level stage 1 requirements that we have. In stage 2, we get much more detailed with that and decide what the customer really needs. And we make that as comprehensive as possible. And then stage 3, those are the solution ones. And as I mentioned before, because most of the work in the state of California is contracted out and goes through procurement, we then take a look at that. And in some cases, we make the requirements more detailed so that a vendor can estimate. In some cases, we make it less detailed because we don't want to tell the vendor how they need to do this work. We want the solution as opposed to dictating how they're going to build it for us. So really, stage 3 is not necessarily more detailed. It's just more developed for a vendor to go out and to put into an SOW. Mina, is that satisfactory, or do you want to clarify that?
I think that's fine. It's fair. Yes.
Okay. The next question here, someone expressed that they've got a lot of experience working as a contractor in, federal agencies, and with a lot of other work. And some of that has included analysis. Wondering if that type of work and background may be able to help break into the business analysis field. And my thought on that is, I would say, if you can think logically you can communicate well, and you can write and document well, then I think you have the skills to be a business analyst. Turning back to that screen that I showed with the skills and attributes, those are not necessarily super specific. And I think a lot of people have these skills. They may be working in other areas, but if you have an interest in translating for people and communicating and advocating, I think you have the potential to be a good business analyst. All right, and I think there's one more that just came in. Nope, I don't see another one. Any other questions that anyone else has? If not, then again, thank you. I think Nina and I are available if you have questions for us. You're welcome to send us a private chat and give us a phone number, or communicate with us through another means. We would be happy to answer your questions, and hope that you found this helpful.
Yeah, Brian and Nina, thank you very much. This is Bobby. I think this was a great overview of the process. I sure learned a lot, and thank you both very much.
Thank you, Bobby.
Yeah, if I can say also, something that we usually talk about at the beginning of these meetings, so we talked a lot about jobs at the state, but I wanted to throw it out there to anybody else, maybe starting with you, Bobby.
Sure.
Any job opportunities that you guys are aware of that you want to share with the group?
Absolutely. We have private sector and projects that support state and local government for business analysts, project managers, developers, testers, service desk. So even though the economy is in, a crazy time right now, companies are hiring, and please, my contact information is on here. Experis is happy to help you out. And even if it's just a conversation about what you're thinking, happy to help. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Experis is one of our sponsors for the Sacramento Valley IIBA, so we're always grateful for that. Does anybody else have any jobs that they know of at their respective companies? All right. Well, again, thank you, Brian and Mina. I think on behalf of the IIBA, we've got some gifts that will be coming your way electronically. There is going to be a survey in the next day or two. I really appreciate it if you guys could give any feedback. I'm always trying to find better ways to do these events remotely and online. I don't know how long we're going to have to keep doing it. So if there's something that you think we could be doing differently, or start thinking about topics for next year's agenda. We also, so I'll have that survey out. We'll have the slides and the video of this presentation up on the Sac Valley website within the next day or two. The slide deck I already have, so I'll get that up tonight. And again, if you're interested in being part of the IIBA board, that information is available on our website too. So with that said, thank you guys for being here tonight.